Pregame.com.
Welcome to the 2011 NFL football season. It's the kickoff, New Orleans at Green Bay. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, and I am joined by highly regarded sports journalist and sports handicapper here in Las Vegas, Stephen Nover. Stephen, welcome to the 2011 season. Are you pumped?
Oh, I am psyched. It's great to be here, Marco. It's great to be back with pregame. This is going to be an exceptional, unique season because of the lockout. A lot of things have changed, and it's you got to really do a lot of extra work. But if you do it, like you and I know have done it, it's going to pay off.
Homework always is the best, gets you the best results. And, well, it's the kickoff, and as tradition, they start with the Super Bowl champion, and we're facing the Super Bowl champion from the year before, New Orleans and Green Bay. So we might as well get it out of the way. Green Bay's the Super Bowl champs. Go ahead, Stephen. Who did they beat last year? I know you're dying. You can't wait to to rub that one in.
Well, I didn't want to bother you, after the Super Bowl. I figured I better let you cool off with your Steelers, but the Steelers almost came back. It was. I don't think people quite realize what a fantastic game Aaron Rodgers had in that Super Bowl. I think it was maybe one of the half dozen greatest games by a quarterback in Super Bowl history.
Well, what's missed is the fact that all the drop passes that he had that would have made the score. It wouldn't even have been close.
Then everybody would have said, what a great.
Pittsburgh was in the game, but, by the scoreboard, but really they were lucky to have that opportunity at the end. But let's get down to business. This is Thursday night football. It's the kickoff. We've got Green Bay. They open. They're right now a 4.5-point favorite, 47.5 on the total. Do you have a side that you like here in this game, and we'll break it down?
They've priced it right. I mean, I like Green Bay, but now at 4.5 against a quality opponent like New Orleans, that's pretty much priced right. My lean is towards Green Bay. I just think of all the teams affected by the lockout, Marco, the Packers were the least affected, having all their players in place. Now you can say with Green Bay, what about the fat cat syndrome? It's so tough to repeat. They catch a huge break with the lockout because there's no football for the first few months where you don't have the mini camps and things. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff that drags for a champion. Now all of a sudden they're hungry again. They haven't had football until August.
Well, that's a great point, and I got to mention that Green Bay was one of the teams that really stood pat. They didn't make very many moves in the offseason. They're happy with what they got, and why wouldn't they be?
If you have a full house, being a poker player, what do you do?
Yeah, you're gonna hold on to that. But this is a team, and if you think about it, this is a team that won the Super Bowl last year, where during the course of the season, they suffered a lot of injuries as the season went on. And
15 players on IR, more injuries than any other team in the NFL, and yet still won the Super Bowl. And they're getting those guys back, so that's why they stand pat.
And something to remember, and we'll talk about it when we leap forward to the end of the football season, but one of the things that I think drove Green Bay all the way to the Super Bowl is they had to battle right to the final week of the season. I mean, there was a chance they weren't even going to make the playoffs, and I see it so many times. These teams that coast their way into the playoffs, look what happened. New England. I mean, New England was clearly the best team in football in most people's minds last year, and they get bounced in their first playoff game by the Jets. Green Bay had to fight and claw the whole way just to get to the playoffs. They had that momentum going into the playoffs, and they rode it right to a Super Bowl victory.
Well, it just shows you the importance of a hot quarterback and good coaching. That can really carry you a long way.
One thing that, an angle I'm going to talk about in this game, and we talked about it briefly before we came on air, the lockout's going to present different problems for different teams. We talked about Green Bay's going to have an advantage because the nucleus of this team's the same. They didn't make changes. So that not having the mini camps and the new players learning the playbooks. Think about it. The teams that made wholesale changes, whether it be signing a new quarterback, drafting a quarterback that you're going to start, making, free agent signings, or the coaching changes, teams that have new coaching staffs, defensive and offensive coordinators having to learn the different systems. Those teams are behind the eight ball, I feel, in this first month of the season because they didn't have the spring ball where they had the mini camps where players can come in, start learning the playbooks. You're a quarterback and you're coming to a new team and they hand you a playbook at the end of July for the first time. How can you be up to? You can't have the whole playbook at your disposal. It's going to be a learning process as they're going. Think about when I hate to bring it. There it is. First season, I'm going to bring up Brett Favre, but first week of the season, when he moved to the different teams that he did, there was a learning curve for him to catch up to that team. And then, of course, being the prima donna that he was and signed late and everything else, to miss a couple of weeks of camp, he wasn't at his best the first weeks of the season. And, took a few weeks to get, into the groove. So that's going to be a problem. I think another problem this year, and it's something that could affect the totals, mainly first week NFL, historically you've seen more unders than overs because, the teams are tight, everybody's ready. Preseason you play a lot of vanilla, defenses. Teams don't see the blitz packages. So the scoring that you saw in preseason generally stops, once you get into the regular season. But I think this year the offenses are going to be a little bit sluggish, so that would tend to the under. But I think on the flip side, people forget about the defenses. You got to play cohesive defense to be successful. If you have one missed assignment, that's a touchdown. If a guy blows a coverage in a secondary, you got a guy streaking free for an easy 7. That's a backbreaker for you as far as, if you're betting unders. How about tackling? One of the most simplest things of football. That's the first thing you learn to do is tackle. But if you don't have all the reps and you're hitting in practice and so forth and in game situations for the players to get the reps that they do, if you don't tackle well these first week of the season, one missed tackle turns a 7-yard slant into a 30-yard gain or a touchdown. So I think we're going to see more overs the first week than we normally do.
Well, those are good points. I don't know, though, if we will see more overs because there's arguments you can make on the other side, Marco. For instance, you said the defense needs to be cohesive. You can't have missed tackles. Correct. Agree. However, a lot of offensive lines at this stage are not cohesive.
True.
They haven't had time to really get in sync, and that's equally important, so that can kind of negate each other. There's some teams with some huge offensive line problems. Now you also have what I think is a horrible new rule, the kickoffs.
Yeah.
Move from the 35 to the 30. Well, these kickers, just with that 5 yards, they're going to put in the end zone. And you're going to have an average starting position of the 20, 21-yard line instead of the 27, which it was last year. That's like an extra first down almost, and that's really going to make a difference. And it also makes a difference in the play calling. You have to be a little more conservative, especially if you have a young quarterback from your own 20 rather than if you were close to the 30 on first down. You're going to be running the ball. A lot of these teams are going to be running the ball on first down. Defenses are geared for the run. They have their standard defense. They don't have their nickel packages or anything like that in on first down. Chances are they're not going to make much on first down. And so I just think they're going to start in the hole a lot. Your points I agree with too, but I think it comes down, Marco, you got to look at each individual matchup.
Look, I agree. Look at the teams that have their offensive nucleus there from last year. Offensive line intact, key skill positions, obviously your quarterback, your running back, and the wide receivers. If this team was in place last year, they're going to have a huge edge over another team that's got new players or new coaching schemes, to deal with. So again, goes back to homework.
Well, that's part of why I like Green Bay, why my lean is toward Green Bay in this matchup. Their defense is set. New Orleans has some changes in their defense. And also a key note here, no Will Smith. He's New Orleans, he's their best pass rusher from the edge. He's suspended this game and he's suspended next week. And they've got some new faces in there. Their secondary is still a little vulnerable. Jonathan Vilma, their middle linebacker, I think has lost a step. Still good, but not as good as when he was with the Jets. Mm-hmm. Where the Packers have their defense in place. Clay Matthews is healthy. I mean, he was a monster when he wasn't 100%. So
there's no question. I mean, the future looks very bright for the Green Bay Packers. You got to think, though, New Orleans was a team that suffered the Super Bowl hangover. That you would expect this team to be back on the rise this year off of,
Yeah.
the disappointing year
Got to
last
have
year.
the morale. They probably, I know they've been looking forward to this matchup all summer, all season. They had gotten hot at the end. You thought they were going to make a move. I thought they won 6 in a row going into that Seattle playoff game, and then
Right.
laid an egg. And
They've had a bad taste in their mouth all
Yeah.
off season and summer long. The Seattle game was one of probably the most inexcusable playoff losses in recent memory. But anyways, it's going to be a good game. I got 2 stats I'll throw out there for you. Green Bay's been a point spread darling the last 2 seasons, 24-12 against the spread. So they make their backers happy. And for over-under bettors, since McCarthy took over for the Packers, when he plays an NFC South team, they've gone over 8 of 9 games. So Green Bay comes out gunslinging, when they face those teams. So just a couple stats to throw out there. Right now, I don't have an opinion on the game. I'm on the fence yet. We'll see if I come up with anything tomorrow, watch the final line moves. Steven's opinion is Green Bay minus the 4.5. Projected score?
oh, I would say something like 27-20. I can see the Packers winning by 7. It might be very close there at the end, and then the Packers get the ball and drive it in for the winning touchdown there and cover.
All right, and we do know you are a Green Bay Packer fan.
I've been following them, Marco, since the early 60s. I grew up in the Lombardi era, and that's my team.
That's your team.
Yeah.
All right, he's Stephen Nover. I'm Marco D'Angelo. We're going to be back. We're going to preview a Friday ESPN game. We're going to take a look at Missouri at Arizona State up next.